So hello and welcome to the Singapore Grand Prix race review, and joined by Aritra this week. And to start off with, it's fair to say Ferrari are back.
Yeah, Ferrari are back, and I mean, lots of talking points in this race. The top six did not change their places, but then I think there's more to it than the results show.
Yeah, I think you're right. And obviously, I mean that's the way we'll start. I mean, there's no way around that, is there? The way Ferrari got a 1-2, but if you chose Leclerc, you're not particularly happy about the way around it is, are you? I think it fair to say that we talked a lot the last couple of races about is Leclerc becoming Ferrari's new number one. Won the last two races, looked so impressive, but Ferrari have shown that's not the case.
Well, I mean, that is an argument, but I feel that whatever Ferrari did in this race, I don't really think they had much choice because the way the first stint was going for everyone, I think pitting Vettel at that time was actually the correct call, and it was just, I mean, Leclerc's luck that played into whatever transpired later. But I don't think really that Ferrari was probably at fault for favoring Vettel, and I genuinely do not think that they actually favored Vettel. It just turned out to be like that because of the circumstances and because of the way the pack was going and everything else regarding that. So I don't really hold Ferrari accountable for favoring Vettel in this because I did not get a feeling that they did favor Vettel. It's just the circumstances that panned out that way.
Yeah, man, I feel like it was kind of a team decision, wasn't it? They felt like they wanted to, instead of getting a 1-3, they went for the 1-2, and because they went for the 1-2, that gave Sebastian the better strategy. As it turned out, the undercut was really powerful in this race, and that then got him past Leclerc. And at the end of the day, I'm sure if you're Mentai Binotto, you're a lot happier with a 1-2 with a slightly upset Leclerc than you are with a 1-3 with
Yeah, exactly.
Leclerc taking the victory.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I don't really. I mean, Leclerc was really disappointed just after the race, and then later, I think in a few of the interviews, he clarified that in the heat of the moment, he did not realize the entire situation because, I mean, you obviously have to sympathize with the driver here because a driver, while he is driving, does not have the clear picture of what everything is going everywhere, whatever is going on in the entire track. He just sees things from his perspective while he's on the track, and later when he got to know the entire scenario, he was like understandable to the situation, and yeah, it's okay, and it's a 1-2 for the team, so it's fine.
Do you feel like he'll still be frustrated? Do you feel like that's a lot for the cameras? Do you feel like he still will be very frustrated behind closed doors? Because at the end of the day, he has still been undercut by his teammate, which is it's a big that's a big thing in F1 about how you don't you don't undercut your teammate, how the team don't orchestrate that. So it's still quite a controversial issue. Yeah, do you think Leclerc will still be very annoyed behind closed doors when the cameras aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, if team radios are anything to go by, I think he will be because what I'm getting a Leclerc is, I think with every passing race, I get a feeling that he's becoming increasingly ruthless in his nature, and he's becoming unforgiving in the way he conducts himself. He's becoming very very unforgiving, and he's not going to give an inch to anybody, even if it's a four-time world champion.
Absolutely, absolutely. And coming more widely then to Ferrari in general. One of the big things I thought was quite telling for how the rest of the season is going to go. That Ferrari have now got 3 wins in a row, but it's not just 3 wins in a row. Because if you look at the tracks they've got these wins at, they're very different tracks. Singapore, in particular, is very different to Monza. It's very different to Spa. I know a lot of people kind of put Ferrari's resurgence after some breakdown to, oh well, Monza and Spa are Ferrari tracks. Now it came to Singapore, and Singapore was not thought to be a Ferrari track, and I'm sure a lot of us, myself included, expected Mercedes to be back on the pace, or it was going to be like a Mercedes Red Bull battle for the win. As it turned out, yeah, Ferrari kind of walked away with it in the end. So that how do you think that's going to kind of play end of the season? Are Ferrari the top dogs now? Are Ferrari just going to be strong in these last six?
Well, it's obviously difficult to predict. I mean, if you look at the trajectory of the season so far, it's very difficult to predict anything to go with Ferrari because they've been so unpredictable. As I said, they're the Haas of the top teams. So you know, like it's very difficult to predict the upcoming six races. But then, yeah, I would agree with you when you say that we kind of expected this to be between Mercedes and Red Bull for the win, but it turned out that it was between Mercedes and Red Bull, but for the podium. So, I don't really see them continuing this dominance. But then I think the upgrade package that they brought to Singapore, I think they brought an upgrade to the floor and the front wing. So that I think played a part, and they do look like a different team after the summer break. To be honest with you.
They do. And question is though, have they left themselves too much to do in both championships? I would suggest they have.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah,
yeah, carry on. I'll let you go.
yeah, right. Yes, they have actually left themselves too much to do because with before Singapore, with 7 races to go, they had a 150-point gap to Mercedes, which is, I think, even if you get 1-2s in every race, I think it's still too big of a gap to close down.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we look at, and if we flash the Drivers' Championship, Lewis Hamilton there on 296 points, Leclerc and Verstappen are both on 200 points. That's still a gap of 91. That's still a gap of 96 points. It's got to be closed down in 6 races, and because they were starting further back, weren't they? When Leclerc won the race in Monza, I think he was something like 118 points behind Hamilton, and even then, Hamilton's not disappearing. Hamilton is finishing third, fourth, second. So yeah, Hamilton's results have been second, third, fourth, and even today from the in this race, Charles Leclerc has only gained 8 points. No, Charles Leclerc has only gained 6 points. I should I say 6 points. And when you've got a 96-point lead to eat into and only 6 races left to do it, they're gonna have to hope for some terrible reliability from Mercedes, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, Mercedes have to have double DNFs for the next 3 races, and they'll still be ahead of everybody in the championship. So I don't think Lewis has anything to worry about. Even his teammate, he hasn't got to worry about his teammate, as was evident from the strategy calls in this race. I mean, we'll come back to
Yes,
that.
Valtteri
Yeah,
James made it come
we'll
back, didn't it?
yeah, we'll come back to Valtteri James a little later. Before that, we have to talk about the man who probably had the quietest race out of the top six, and I'm talking about Max Verstappen, who was eventually third. Uh, I wouldn't say it was a deserved podium because I honestly feel that one of the Mercs should have been on the podium. But yeah, as it turned out, strategy played a big role, and Max Verstappen ended up on the podium. Not deserved, but yeah. As I'm a Max admirer, not a fan, but an admirer, I loved it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think there's not much to say for Max's race, to be honest. Qualified fourth, would have finished there, but the Mercedes strategy call. I wouldn't say Red Bull strategy got Max ahead. I would say
Nah.
Mercedes' strategy put Hamilton behind. I think we should kind of move on to that really, because I say Max just, there wasn't really anything to say to the Hamilton strategy. Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? We could see that they kind of gambled on the fact that the Ferraris would be caught in traffic, and that they would wear their tyres out, and towards the end of the race they could potentially come back at them, or I guess even more prominently they would have hoped that the traffic would have held them up to the extent that they could kind of get back ahead. But do you think that could ever work? Because I mean, from my opinion, I don't know how they thought that they were going to be slowed down so much, and Hamilton's tyres would last so long that he could make that strategy work. Because even if they do get stuck behind the Force Indias and the Renaults, Hamilton's tyres are going off, and he can't put in those blistering lap times. So eventually, they were kind of doing similar lap times, even though the Ferraris were in traffic and Hamilton wasn't, just because of the way the tyres are dropping out. Can you see what they were trying to do, or do you think it was a bad call?
Yeah, if you ask me, I mean, it's a better bet to say that they were depending on a safety car to protect Lewis, because otherwise, I don't really see how this could have worked out. Because as soon as the Ferraris, I mean, as soon as Vettel pitted, you could see the Vettel and Max pitted together, as far as I can remember. And as soon as these guys pitted, you could see that Lewis wasn't able to push on as hard as he would have liked, and these guys were catching up and catching up fast. And as was evident, it was not very difficult for one of the top six cars to get past a midfield car. So it was backfiring, and it was backfiring quickly. And they still let Hamilton out for a couple of more laps. So it was hurting him with every lap. And I don't know, I think it was Lewis's decision himself to stay out for that long. But then, yeah, eventually his teammate helped him out to get fourth. But yeah, I mean, judging by this race, I think I can confidently say this now, and I can be wrong, but then I don't really think Mercedes want Valtteri to win the championship, the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got too much competition now to let them race, because you know, as we say, there's a 96-point gap. There's 6 races, but until it's done, Mercedes aren't going to take it easy. You know, I just don't think, they're losing enough points at the minute to Ferrari and Red Bull in this race as well. So they don't need to be giving away points within their own team, which is what they can control. Because you never know. As much as Mercedes have looked strong this season, Hamilton's engine might go in one of the 2 races. They could get caught up in contact. You just never know, and that happens a couple of times. That's 50 points down the drain straight away, and then you're right back into a battle. So I don't think, people might call it overcautious, but I just don't think Mercedes are going to want to take any chances. They're going to want to maximise every single time, every single kind of race for Hamilton, because a lot of the time towards the season, maybe they're not going to be winning. Maybe they're kind of accepting that, and maybe also what they're doing is they're kind of, they're using this as putting more into next year's car as well, because there's no like I'm about it again, because they're probably going to try and just sit on this gap and keep it for Hamilton, really, rather than kind of put effort back into developing their car to try and get it back ahead, because I don't think there's really any point. So I think they're just kind of they're kind of saying, this is our car now, we're just going to hold what we've got, and because we've done enough already.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the point that you mentioned, I think Mercedes have always been overcautious with protecting the points that they have, and I think it was clear last year as well that they were trying to protect the points that they have towards the end of the season, because Hamilton himself also, I think, just eases off a little so far as the head-to-head battles go in the races, because he wants to secure his championship first, and I think it's pretty evident. And yeah, whatever you said makes sense, that they would like to protect the lead that they have, because I think Mercedes had 1-2s for the first 5 races, and then they lost a race for the first time in the eighth round or ninth round, I feel. Yeah, so we have 6 races remaining, and Ferrari have looked the team to beat in the last 3, and they've got a 1-2 now. So if this dominance continues for the next 6 races, you could have a battle on your hands. So you have to be overcautious.
Yeah, exactly. The last thing you want, as I say, if you can get a couple of bits of bad luck, and then Ferrari keep winning, they are right back in the race, and you don't want that kind of nervous final race, because if you go into a final race where the championship's still on the line, anything can happen. Any kind of DNF, and you immediately, you never know what's going to happen. So they need to still look after that. But do you also think it's a case of they also don't trust Valtteri? I'm sure, we talked about a lot in Italy, didn't we? The way that, Valtteri, because of what happened with Hamilton, Valtteri got the chance to attack Leclerc, and he made 2 separate mistakes and couldn't get anywhere near him. Do you feel like at the point when Hamilton was coming out the pits, it wasn't just maximise Hamilton's points, it was also, if we're going to come back at these cars in front, we trust Hamilton a lot more to do that than Bottas? I think that was part of it as well.
Yeah, that was part of it, as far as I think. And more than that, I feel I'm going to play devil's advocate here for James, because not many people are doing that. But if I have to speak for James, I would say that he did what he had to do, because I feel that the way both the guys were racing and the way both Hamilton and Bottas's weekends were going, Bottas was actually off the pace the entire weekend. If you observe his timings throughout the weekend, he was off the pace by a long way. And Hamilton actually deserved. If you ask me honestly, I think Hamilton deserved to win the race for the way he drove. If the strategy had gone his way a little, he would have won the race. And that is why I think Mercedes made the call, because actually Lewis deserved more than Valtteri did in this race.
I agree there. Hamilton kind of looked on the pace all weekend, and we were all shocked when Leclerc kind of popped up with the podium. And yeah, that's another thing. With the strategy, it was kind of interesting because I feel like once Vettel had gone for the undercut, I think Mercedes realised if we just pit now, we'll be behind. But I guess the argument for us looking at it in the races, would it have been better to come in with Leclerc and end up behind just the Ferraris and then see what was going to happen, or do what they tried to do? And what they tried to do was, right, we're going to be behind the Ferraris, so let's just stay out now and hope. Number one, we're going to hope that their tyres go off at the end of the race. And number two, we're going to hope they get stuck in traffic. Or number three, best case scenario, the safety car comes out and we're still in the lead. It's kind of, I feel like they chose to risk everything to try and stay ahead and hope for some outside influence. But in making that risk, they lost the position to Verstappen as well.
And, exactly. And because you mentioned Verstappen and Red Bull, I think Albon had a chance to have a go at the Mercedes. He made a mistake while going for an overtake on Bottas, and that is why he ended up P6 in the end. But we're going to talk about Albon later. But yeah, I mean, you're right when you say that they took a gamble. They hoped for three different things, at least one of them to go their way, and none of them did. Because the Ferraris did not lose their tires because we had three different safety cars, so nobody's tires actually went off, and Ferraris did not get stuck behind traffic, and
not for
they
the
did not.
but they did for a bit.
Yeah, and they did not have a safety car while they were in the lead, so nothing went their way. And yeah, I think it's kind of it's a gamble that they had to take, because it was kind of a stalemate for the first 20 laps. So somebody had to do something, and Mercedes took the gamble and they lost. So it's fine.
Yeah, it was kind of it was a gamble to win the race rather than a let's just get the most we can. Because if they were trying to, if they were really trying to just get the most they could, they probably would have pitted in straight away and locked in third and then seen what they could get from there. But they decided to risk everything, and maybe again that's a sample of where they are in the championship. Though they felt that they could do that, and then I guess they'd rather chase the glory of a victory than just say, well, we'll maximise what we can do and we'll get third. I feel like maybe that's what their thinking was.
Yeah, and I think being in the moment and being near the racetrack and actually having two drivers racing at the same time probably influences your decision on that as well.
Yeah, I think so. You talk about Albon there, and we'll kind of move on to now, because we talked a lot about Mercedes. I don't think there's a lot more to say. Do you feel like one of those guys like a Valtteri or an Albon, they could have gone for something a bit different? They could have tried something a bit different with their strategy, because it seemed like to me they just kind of went on with their business in fifth and sixth and weren't really a factor to anyone in this race.
Well, Valtteri could have. He was stopped by James. But Albon, when it comes to Albon, I think that it was. I mean, if you ask me, if I be honest with you, I think the Red Bull management would have instructed Albon to, stay away from trouble as much as possible and get the most out of what you can. Because this is not a circuit where you can overtake easily, and I think this was I mean, Albon was actually racing for the first time in the circuit in a Formula One car. At least I don't think he's raced here before, but yeah, first time in a Formula One car in a circuit where it is near impossible to overtake. So you have to kind of play it safe, and especially when you're new in the car. So I think Red Bull would have instructed him to stay safe and get P6. I think Christian Horner also mentioned this during qualifying. Christian Horner mentioned to Crofty or Martin Brundle, I'm forgetting who it was, but he said that if he gets P6 in qualifying, I'm happy. So P6 in the race shouldn't be bad, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think Red Bull management would have said that maintain P6 while you have it, and I mean you don't want Albon to go for P5 and then end up P10. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Very true. Yeah, I think that's true. We have seen him kind of get tangled in a few incidents already in his Red Bull F1 career. So maybe that was, yeah, true. Maybe that was kind of the thinking there, and just kind of getting him comfortable with
yeah,
the
and
car.
I
And
mean another point that I want to mention. I think during the race, Sky Sports had uh, Christian Horner on the line, and he clearly mentioned that in order to overtake comfortably in the circuit, you have to be 2 seconds quicker than the car in front of you, which
yeah,
wasn't going to be the case when you're chasing a Merc. So yeah, they played it safe, and I think it was probably the right decision. And Albon, I think he maximized his weekend in the way that he did everything he could, and if you, I mean, if anybody who has watched the race, they'll know that Albon was actually, you know, with the leaders. I mean, the top six guys were in a single frame throughout the race for most of the race, actually.
yeah, that's very true. Yeah, because it was kind of a strange race, wasn't it? In that the top guys, because of the tyres they were on, top guys were all on the softs. Everyone was on the mediums apart from Gasly, who was on the hards. And
Uh,
yeah, which turned out to be a pretty good call, but we'll come on to that. Yeah, they just couldn't get away from them, and actually, that really affected the strategy calls, didn't it? Because when it came to the top guys pitting, they had to wait and wait and wait, and literally cling on to their tyres because gaps in the mid. They had to wait for a gap in the midfield to open up, and like those gaps took a long time to open up. And I'm sure they would have liked to drive quicker, but it just wasn't possible because if you had driven those soft tyres to their full potential, they'd have gone off a lot sooner, and you'd be pitting and you'd be coming back down in like P17. So
yeah, yeah, exactly.
which was good to see. So that kind of brings us on to the midfield. Then let's talk about them. Lando
Yeah,
Norris, and I've got to say I'm very, very, very happy indeed because this was one of those races that Lando's had quite a few of this season, where he's clearly the best car in the midfield. He's very safely in that position, has nice currents of race, just got to bring the car home. And for the first time in a long time, the car's not let him down. The car stuck with him, and he picked up P7, 6 points. Exactly the same kind of race as Belgium, where the car let him down then, and this time the car was fine. Lando drove a great race, had a little bit of trouble, well, not trouble, but Hulkenberg and Gasly were coming back at him, but he held them off well, and yeah, finished his race in P7, best of the rest.
yeah. I mean, I'm starting to think that Lando Norris and night races are a thing, because the last time he got a solid haul of points out of a weekend was Bahrain, where he finished P6 the previous night race, and in this night race he finishes P7. But yeah, I mean, like you, I'm really, really glad that he finally got what he deserved. And this was a long time coming, and yeah, it was thoroughly deserved. And he actually drove pretty well because he started P10, yeah,
P9.
P10 or P9, yeah,
P9.
yeah, because of the Ricardo penalty. Yeah, he started P9 and eventually finishing P7. I think it's quite good when you consider the track Singapore. And yeah, it's, as I said, it's near impossible to overtake, and gaining 2 places from start to finish is a good thing.
And again, he's another one of those guys who wouldn't have been here before.
Yeah, 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 exactly, yeah. So he deserves some extra credit for that, and which is also due, I guess.
And if we're talking about extra credit, this was got to be due for the man down in P8 as well, Pierre Gasly. And I've got to say, I'm not just going to credit his drive, which I thought was excellent. I'm going to also credit the strategy guys down at Toro Rosso, the only man in the field to put the hard tyres on, and he certainly made it work.
He made it work, and he was running at P2 at one point, which he wasn't even able to do in a Red Bull. So,
that's a very good point.
so yeah, I mean, P2 and a Toro Rosso, so he deserves a lot of credit, and I think I can firmly say this now that he is back and he's here to stay.
Yes, he looks a different. Well, I say a different man. He looks like the same man of when he was back in Toro Rosso before the promotion.
Yeah.
He just looks, so much more confident, comfortable with the car, kind of more confident in what the car is going to do, and he just looks a lot quicker in the Toro Rosso. And obviously, we won't go into the ins and outs of where we'll get back to Red Bull now, but you can just see kind of without the pressure of the top team on him, he's completely released him, hasn't it, to be the driver we know he can be.
Yeah, he is at 23 what Raikkonen is at 39.
Explain. Let's dig into that.
Because at 39, Kimi is performing better in an Alpha than he did in a Ferrari because he is away from the pressure of a top team, and Gasly at 23 is doing the same thing.
very, very true. Good comparison, actually. Yeah. Yeah, and you got to say, he did everything he could. Started P11, they gave him the free tyre choice, made the most of it, and got it to P8. And obviously, yeah, as you say, was pressurising Lando towards the end of the race, and as was Nico Hulkenberg, who had a very, very up and down race. And you've got to say, the safety car certainly made the best use of those, all three of them.
Yeah, exactly. And about Hulkenberg, I just want to mention a point that I've seen a lot of people, including experts, mention this a lot, that Ricciardo has convincingly beaten him this season, and everybody expected the Hulk to put up more of a fight towards Ricciardo. In the context of this race, it was Ricciardo who by far looked the more impressive driver on track, but it was Hulkenberg who came away with the points. And in the context of the season, if you tell me that Ricciardo has beaten this guy convincingly, I am unconvinced because Ricciardo is on 34 and this guy is on 33.
Yeah, I think Ricciardo is one of the drivers, because of how he drives and his style, he stands out a lot more. So
Yeah,
people like Nico Hulkenberg kind of no frills, none of all this last to the late breakers, but he'll get you points and he'll pick up the points, and that will go more under the radar. Whereas when Daniel Ricciardo picks up the points, he makes headlines. The way he drives, he just kind of attracts an audience, and that kind of maybe gives more kind of attention to his results. Whereas in the cold light of day, you just look at it on a bit of paper, they're not much better. Well, they're 1 point better than Nico Hulkenberg, and this was the race where I still ask questions about Daniel, and he's 30, I'm not sure, he's 30, 31. He's the wrong side of 30 for sure, and he's still not as consistent as you like him to be. Like, he's still making mistakes that you would not like him to make, or you would expect a young driver to make. And this was the kind of race. It was the first half was brilliant, carving through the field. He's on the radio like, yeah, I'm not sucking around today. Let's go. Let's get through the field. But it's like, yes, that's well and good, and that attitude's good. But yet again, we've seen it. Not the first time we've seen it this season. He's gone in too hard. He's made contact, which was his fault, by throwing his car in too deep, and that's cost him points, and that's dropped him right back down again. And maybe he feels like there's less pressure because he's not in any kind of battle for race wins. But at the same time, like, your team won't thank you for getting into prangs like that, and because I'm sure Daniel Ricciardo, because all the safety cars at the end, I'm sure he could have been up there for better. I'm sure he could have been challenging Norris at the end for 7.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, he was comfortably ahead of Hulkenberg at one stage in the race, who came P9. So I'm sure that could have been the case, but he's made the mistake. He's overcooked it again. You feel like that that shouldn't be happening, and the battle for the constructors is still well and truly on, and McLaren have outscored Renault when they needn't have done, because Ricciardo shouldn't have made that mistake, and Renault should have got some points back. And in the driver standings as well, Ricciardo's still clinging. There's kind of a little gap, isn't there? It's strange because like Albon and Gasly are kind of outliers because Gasly looks too high for Toro Rosso because he's got the Red Bull, and Albon is too low for Red Bull drive because he's now climbing. So
yeah,
Carlos Sainz is just the one in between there. But yeah, you know what I mean. Like his own championship position should still matter to him, which I don't feel like it does. I don't feel like he cares about the championships enough.
Yeah, I mean, in the context of this race, do you think that him getting disqualified from the qualifying might have added to the frustration and the way he drove in this race?
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I feel like he wouldn't have. That kind of gave him. He was extra fired up, wasn't he? Because he was really angry with the decision. He said, you know how much the FIA ruined his race, and he's just going to go out there and give it everything. And I think he kind of drove with reckless abandon, and that reckless abandon came from the fact he was starting 20th and potentially wasn't expecting anything. But as soon as he got into that position, he was still reckless and was still chucking his car into moves when there was plenty of time in the race, and that was his downfall. So yeah, I think no doubt that kind of gave him the extra edge. And that's what these guys are like. These drivers, like when you push them into a corner or when it gets tough, that kind of brings the extra level of performance out of them. We've had that kind of driver, but yeah, he pushed it too far in this race.
Yeah, and now we are going to move on to the man who he bumped into, because that man finished P10, and the only man in 4 years to lead a race who was not a part of the top three teams. Antonio Giovinazzi, I mean, I have to give him a special mention in this race because that point was probably the most deserved point in this race, because for the way that he drove in this race, going super long on the first stint, managing to stay ahead of Gasly on the medium tire, and then leading the race for 4 laps, but then leading the race nonetheless on merit, and then still fighting to keep the lead, and then getting contact with Ricciardo, dropping back, and then managing to build an 18-second gap to Romain Grosjean, so much so that even a 10-second penalty after the race could not knock him down.
Yeah, exactly. It's really funny to see him now. Everyone tweeted the graphics, didn't they? Like laps led this season. You've got Giovinazzi there on the bottom with 4. Oh, it was. I mean, I think you've got Max Verstappen on 99, and then you've got Giovinazzi with 4. But oh yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, he deserves a lot of credit for the
yeah,
way
he
he
does.
drove this.
The strategy was to go long. He made it work brilliantly. Did all you could expect of him, and yeah, I think that's the most impressive, kind of getting the 10-second gap to Grosjean, or the 18-second gap to Grosjean, because I can't say I've ever seen a penalty for that before, but fair enough. It's in the interest of safety. I'm sure we can't really complain, but yeah, to kind of pull away from Grosjean to that level was actually really, really impressive, and yeah, P10, it's another point for him, as 2 in a row now. And a
Yeah,
good race.
he is coming back. He is coming back, and if he manages to continue this for the rest of the season, I don't think. I mean, if he manages to, continue this for the rest of the season, I think Hulkenberg is out of F1.
Yeah, I mean, I literally just said now about the whole pressure brings the best out of drivers, and I don't think there's no better driver on the grid to show that than Giovinazzi is there. I feel like as soon as the pressure, over the summer break, I think a lot of people were talking about this second Alpha seat because of the way the season had gone, and since then he's kind of looked a different driver. He's made that mistake in Monza, but since then, 2 more point scoring positions, and yeah, as I say, if he keeps doing this, I don't feel like they're going to get him out of that seat. I don't think anyone is. So Hulkenberg will struggle, because I don't know where else a seat will open up, and I'm not sure I can see him at Williams. But that might, if he wants to stay in F1, that might be his only option. But in a weird way, I wouldn't want him to go to Williams. It's just like I would love to see him in F1 still. I think he deserves it, but like that just seems like such a downgrade and like such a knock to his character. It just seems like such an insult for someone like insult was the word I'm looking for. Like an insult for him to be ended up in the Williams seat when I don't think he's done too much wrong this season or
Yeah,
throughout his
exactly.
whole
I mean,
career.
yeah, yeah. Like, I don't want his career to end the way Robert Kubica's career ended. I mean, his career basically ended. Uh, Moving away from Williams, I don't think he's getting a seat anywhere else. So, yeah, and I don't want
Yeah,
Hulkenberg to, go through the same experience. But yeah, just one thing to point out. I think Giovinazzi made the mistake in Spa and not Monza. Just that, nothing else.
Spa. Sorry, yes, sorry, it was
Yeah.
Spa, wasn't it? It was. Yes, I sorry. Yes, it was. All blur into one. Long season.
No, no problem. I mean, yeah, that brings us to the man who finished 18 seconds on the road behind Giovinazzi, 11th place for Roman Grosjean, and I have to wonder how he got there. And I mean, yeah, I'll ask you this straight away. Do you think that 11th place flatters him?
It does. I'm completely in agreement with you when I say I don't know how he got there. Yeah, it was a strange race now, and also the safety cars have helped a lot. And it's like when you think of Roman's race, the contact with George Russell, the kind of scrapes he got into with other drivers, and you look at the final standings, wow, he got all the way up to 11th. And you look at, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't a classic race from Grosjean, was it? And it wasn't the kind of race that vindicates Gunther Steiner's decision to keep him by any means.
No.
And if
Even
anything,
Christian Horner. I mean, I can't forget this easily, and I just want to mention this. Anybody who's watched the qualifying on Sky Sports will know this. But the thing is, during qualifying, uh, Christian Horner was asked by Crofty or Brundle. I keep getting confused between the two. I can't recognize voices separately. So yeah, so one of them asked Christian Horner that would you have picked Roman Grosjean as your driver as a team principal? And Christian Horner was like, for my team? And he was like, yeah, for your team, like Haas did. And he was like, well, I can't see any reason why they did.
yeah, I don't disagree with Christian there. I mean, that was exactly my reaction to that news. Yeah, it was a strange one. It really was, particularly when you've got someone like Hulkenberg on the market, who I think
And
would just be such
yeah,
a
I
massive
mean,
upgrade.
yeah, let's leave Hulkenberg aside for a moment because his salary demands might not be what Haas are able to afford right now. I'm just going
Okay.
out of line here, but yeah, even if you count Hulkenberg out, I think there are a lot of more talented drivers than I mean, not more talented, but I think better drivers right now than Grosjean who are available out there and who would be open to a Formula One seat if offered to them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's kind of gone under the radar. It's not really been talked about, but Nick De Vries looks extremely likely to become F2 champion. He's just a couple of weeks ago announced that he's going to go off to Formula E.
Which
You
is
know,
disappointing. I'm pretty disappointed by Nick De Vries' decision because
um,
he is supposed to come. The F2 champion has to come into Formula One. Come on.
yeah. I mean, I think like the last one not to, I think Valsecchi, and that was a long time ago. Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because like the way I think he must have just kind of got a view of how the driver market was going, and Haas obviously didn't put out any feelers to him. They've made it clear to him that there wasn't going to be an opening there, and I think the driver market it's not a very good market this year. I don't think there's going to be many moves at all,
Mm.
as is. So yeah, I think De Vries didn't really see any options opening up for him, so he kind of chose to go to Formula E, sort his future out early, which is fair enough for him because I just don't think the opportunity was going to come. But whether it should have came, particularly at Haas, is open for debate, and I think is the case because yeah, Roman, yeah, this kind of race qualified down in P17, got into contact needlessly again. I've just been watching actually the best team radio for the weekend. There's a great one from I think FB2 where he's goes around a corner, gets caught in the cub, spins the car, and then
Yeah,
the,
yeah, yeah. I saw that.
the team come on. If in okay, man, yes, we need to stop talking between corners. It's like of course he's finding someone else to blame, isn't he? Like Roman Grosjean's crashed, of course it's someone else's fault. I was surprised he wasn't blaming Marcus Ericsson, to be honest. That
Uh,
that's just Roman, isn't it? It's always someone else's
yeah.
fault. And yeah, I don't know who he was going to blame this time, because George Russell incident was also very much his fault as well. So, which is a shame. Obviously ruined Williams' 100% finishing record, which
Yeah,
was
I think
disappointing. That was
I
something
actually
should have
think
done.
yeah, I actually think Grosjean was actually after that record, after Williams to break that record because he was like, I've had 50% DNFs this season. I've had 6 DNFs in the first 12 races. How dare you have a 100% finishing record? I'm going to
Yeah,
make sure you don't have that.
yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it certainly looked like that. Yeah, and also, yeah, another thing that looks bad on him, as you say, Giovinazzi was allowed to get 18 seconds ahead, and there was, I mean, when was the remind me, when was the last safety car? It was how many laps for the end was there? It was less than 10, I think, wasn't it?
No, yeah, I think it was about 12.
Like 12, 10, yeah, about 11, 12, and yeah, Giovinazzi's managed to kind of pull 18 seconds on it on everyone else. Was that's something which that can't be ignored. So yeah, again, could have got himself a point, but was just nowhere near the pace. Well, I mean, neither was Kevin Magnussen to that point, wasn't he? Kevin Magnussen just, I felt so bad for Magnussen, I've got to say. I know I'm jumping ahead here, but we're talking about Haas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I was about to mention that. Let's talk about his teammate while we're talking about us.
Yeah, I think the tyres just went away from him, didn't he? Which was a real shame because Haas's problems are well documented, and their race pace in particular is nowhere. And he looked like he was going to get eighth place, and the final safety car came out, and the tyres went off, and he ended up. There you go. He got the fastest lap, which was something for him, wasn't it? But ended up running last, and I think Crofty said it. So I won't claim to have this line for myself, but it was very symbolic of the race, wasn't it? How the race played out, that the man running last entered fastest lap. That was just the
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
strange
yeah.
race it was.
No, I mean, yeah, like you said, I felt bad for Kevin Magnussen as well because uh, when I was watching the race up until lap 41, he was P8, and he was looking on course to finish on the points, and I was really like cheering him on in a way that finally Haas are going to score some points with Kevin Magnussen. Obviously, it's going to be Kevin Magnussen, but
Of course.
yeah, they're going to finally get some points, and it did not happen. And kind of the season that Haas have had, that the tires just go off and the drivers just drop like stones. I mean, Grosjean drops anyhow, but yeah, Magnussen drops like a stone because of the tires.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which is really disappointing. And speaking of disappointing, obviously that brings us on to Carlos Sainz. And yeah, since the mid-season break, his luck and is just evaporated, hasn't it? It's just completely disappeared. I think that's the third non-point scoring finish in a row for him.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of expected to go the way his first half of the season went, in the way that he had a terrible start to the season. In the first 3 races, he had some terrible luck and he did not get what he deserved. And it's the same for the first 3 races in the second half. So I kind of expect Carlos Sainz to come good in the next 6.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. 'Cause I mean, his qualifying has been right on point. Obviously, apart from the qualifying where the kind of the red flag intervened and ruined it, which is indicative of the bad luck more than anything, as
Yeah.
we just said.
Hmm.
But yeah, apart from that, his other two qualifying have been very solid. But yeah, in the race, it's just kind of disappeared, which is a real shame. And he's got a very good lead over everyone else in the constructor in the drivers. I'm sure he wants to overtake Gasly by the end of the season. That's taken a dent these last couple of weeks. I'm sure again Albon will overtake him. So I guess he's on for seventh, but I think sixth and eighth might change positions
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
towards the end of the season. But I feel like seventh is on for him, and hopefully he can get it because I think he deserves it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. He deserves it. And if you ask me, he deserves P6. I mean, if he can have a good last 6 races, I think he deserves P6 for the way he has driven the season.
Yeah, nice. I wouldn't disagree with that. I think he definitely deserves to be ahead of Gasly. He just looks so much more impressive, and yeah, Albon's obviously got the better machinery, but Yeah, I mean, there's only 8 points on the offer for sixth place. Is only 8 points. So if Albon is going to consistently be in that fifth, sixth region, last of the top six cars, if Carlos Sainz can get himself in seventh more often than not, that's only going to be a 2 point gain for Albon if it's sixth and seventh, and Albon is still 16 behind. So
Ah,
it's not
good maths.
it. Yeah, it's not impossible for Sainz to hold on to that position, especially if Albon has a bad race in between that somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, since Gasly is back at Toro Rosso, you can't count Gasly as well because Gasly's got a huge lead on both of them.
Does Gasly has 11 points, doesn't he? Yeah, Gasly. I feel like a couple of more races like that again. Gasly's going to be strong. I was surprised. I thought Sainz would have him by now, but I should say that's not been the case. But I reckon Sainz will still get that position, but just have to work a lot harder for it now, won't he?
Yeah, 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 exactly. So the man who finished behind Carlos Sainz, Lance Stroll, just a Lance Stroll race where he lost it by himself.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? It's kind of what we've come to expect from Stroll. Nothing. Oh, yeah, nothing a lot to say really, was
Oh,
there?
and he's back to form in qualifying. He exited in Q1.
Yeah, it was kind of he had that little blip, didn't he, where he had some good qualifying, and then it's like yeah, back to what we expect from Lance.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that brings us to the man who finished in P15, who had a terrible qualifying and probably was expecting to get into the points at one stage in this race. Daniel Kvyat had contact with Kimi Raikkonen, which obviously eliminated Raikkonen from the race. But it was a racing incident, if you ask me, and yeah, pretty much a dead race from Kvyat since that contact. Up until that, he was looking quite racy, and yeah, he was looking like the Kvyat we've seen this season. But in the end, I think he did not deserve any points because the drivers who did finish in the points deserved it more than him.
Yeah, and I mean you say racy there. I think race that's a good word. I'd argue he was too racy. You know the old we know we talk so much about how this season has been him redefining himself, him saying I'm not the driver I used to be when I was in F1 before, and then the torpedo comes back out again in this race. Yeah, I don't know. I would have leaned towards that being Danny's fault and him coming on too strongly there and causing the collision. Which I don't think anything was done because he came P15. I think Raikkonen was out of the points anyway. I think it's one of them, isn't it? Where I feel like personally, if that incident happens in the points, Kvyat gets a penalty.
Yeah,
Um, it's just easy to do nothing, and it's one of them as well. It's like it's not so bad. It's worth a penalty, like a good place. There's just no point. It's not. It wasn't that bad, and they can't punish him for in the race because he's already P15. So there would be no point giving him a 10-second penalty. I mean, incidentally, that would have dropped him behind Kubica for P16, but that I guess the stewards just didn't really think that was worth it.
yeah,
But
yeah, and you have to agree with the stewards on that because it wasn't worth it exactly.
yeah, but I would argue that if it was in the points, he would have got that penalty. But yeah, that wasn't to be. And then P16 Robert Kubica. Now, the one thing I will say about Robert Kubica, we got to see him in this race. The cameras, I've got to say, to be fair to there's been many times this season you can be critical of the race director and the angles he's shown and the battles he's shown, but I think this race was a very good mix of the top, but they were able to recognise when nothing was happening at the top. You look at the midfield as well, and there was a great little segment of Robert Kubica defending for his life, and they're doing really well. And I really enjoyed watching that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean,
Yeah, because I
I
feel like yeah, go
wait,
on.
I forgot what I was saying.
I,
It's got to get
know, I
back
thought,
into this.
yeah, okay. I'll let you just come back in and we can cut it then.
Yeah, right. Kubica, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What the fuck? My mind went blank.
Oh, don't worry, I've been there. I've been there.
Yeah, so Kubica defending, yeah. We did get to see Kubica defending from a lot of people, and I think it was eerily similar to Sirotkin defending in Singapore last year.
Wasn't it? I mean, Perez was there, wasn't he? He was, he was in the kind of train behind Kubica. He managed to get past it a little easy this time. Didn't lose his mind halfway through.
His engine did lose its mind.
It did. His engine gave up. Perez didn't.
Yeah, but yeah, I think Robert Kubica hasn't done any harm to his reputation in this race.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, everyone's kind of, he's kind of come out this week and said getting back into F1 was my biggest achievement in his career. I think everyone respects that and everyone kind of really admires him for kind of, the strength he's shown to kind of come back from the injury and get into F1. Everyone's obviously happy he's there and he made it back. It's not been the comeback. He's not had the car to show it, but I think we've seen enough in the Williams for everyone to kind of agree this is the best thing. Like, everyone's happy he's come back, but everyone kind of is in agreement. Yeah, let's move on now. You kind of, he's had his comeback and that was great, but moving forward, Kubica and F1 probably aren't the right fit anymore, and he's recognised that as well, and he's chosen to walk away. And obviously, I don't think he's actively pursuing another seat in F1, and I would be extremely surprised if anyone gave him one, despite what Hamilton has said this week, which I'm sure
Yeah,
was more kind of, lip service to an old friend than genuinely believing he should get a seat as high up as possible. I can't imagine him in his heart of heart Hamilton believes that, but I think it was like nice words for an old friend. But yeah, I'd be genuinely surprised if Hamilton actually meant what he said.
yeah, no, and I mean, I have to mention this. That I remember you mentioning in one of the previous podcasts that even if Williams were to offer him a seat for 2020, I think he should put his hand up and say that, yeah, it's been great, but then I think I'm just going to walk away. And it came true.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like, Robert knows. He knows himself, isn't it? He knows what an achievement it was getting back, but he knows in his heart of hearts he's not the driver he once was. And even if the Williams, as I say, Williams hasn't given a chance to really race, but we've seen the way that George Russell's kind of completely taken him apart, and he's not even driven that Williams car to its full potential, even though it's now to the dog of a car. There is still somebody that's driving it nearly a second a lap faster and finishing a lap ahead of him in the same car. So you can tell he's not obviously on the pace.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us to the end of a long discussion because there were so many incidents in this race, quite unlike Singapore in the end, I have to say.
Yes. Kind of one of the best visual races usually, but there's not always lots of action. As we say, the kind of difficulty to overtake comes into that, but plenty of incidents. And obviously, yeah, passing mention for the non-classified. Russell taken out by Grosjean, Raikkonen taken out by Kvyat, Perez taken out by his own engine. All kind of bringing out safety cars. I think Russ started to say bit unlucky. Well, bit unlucky, very unlucky, and obviously lost his 100%, which is a shame. Would have been a nice kind of stat to hang on to for the Williams team, but still got Kubica for that.
Yeah, about Russell, he was ahead of Grosjean when Grosjean sort of crashed into him or just led to his retirement, and Grosjean finished P11. So, do you believe that Russell could have actually got P10 in this race, or am I just over exaggerating the situation?
Um, I I think I don't think he would have held everyone behind. I'm not saying he would have dropped back to last. I don't think that's true, but I think in my heart of heart, I have to say I think a few drivers would have got him. But yeah, he I think he would have come like solidly in that midfield pack. Kind of, I reckon he'd have kind of slotted into like the Sainz, Stroll, Ricardo region.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was. But even then, that's a massive improvement. So it would have been. It's a very interesting question actually, and obviously I'm struggling to answer, but I'm really struggling. But yeah, I think he would have come nicely in that group, which would have been good to see. Because
Yeah, and he's finally getting to race at least.
he is, and the good thing about that would have been he would have beaten cars that haven't had any issues if he was in that region. Because we have seen him finish ahead of cars, but a lot of them have had issues like very late into the race, or a driver
Yeah,
with like heavy damage or something that he's beaten. But I feel like now on the right tracks, he's got the chance to beat drivers like on merit. Um, yeah, which is a big step forward for him, and kind of shows what a driver he is as well.
yeah, that gets me excited for Russia.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and it's 6 in a row for Formula One.
Yes, yeah, another great race. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, we'd all like the midfield to be closer, but this was a good race to kind of demonstrate it. This was one of the few races where the gap between the top cars and the midfield wasn't as obvious. It's kind of a view of what Formula One could and hopefully will become. Because as we say, the top guys weren't getting away from the midfield, and the midfield were a general factor in the strategies. Usually, in the strategies, what happens, isn't it? The top guys are so far ahead; they just worry about themselves. But
Yeah, yeah,
but the midfield were a genuine factor in this race this time. They had to think about where they were going to come out, how they were going to get back through the traffic, because they didn't just walk past them, they didn't just stroll past them. Like they got past them because they're the quick car in the end, but like it wasn't like they just flew straight past. There was times when the Ferraris had to wait a couple of laps to get by the racing point. So yeah, that was good, and obviously hopefully as F1 moves forward in 2021, the new regs, the whole field will come back together again, which will make better racing. But yeah, this was kind of a little snapshot of what F1 could be, which I really enjoyed.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think uh, it is very correct whatever you mentioned. And we don't need to bring back refueling for excitement. We just need to bring 6 more teams which are on the pace.
Yeah, I completely agree. We don't need any of these mad qualifyings, these mad rule changes. You literally don't need anything drastic. You just need a lot more cars that are at the same speed, and then it would be brilliant entertainment as we've seen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And yeah, that will be the end of Singapore. And we are looking forward to Russia, and I'm sure you guys are. So, yeah, that's it. And we will be back with Russia as soon as Russia arrives.